Okay, we'll get started. And Himangi, who is signed up as Terra.do community. Himangi, if you could wave to everyone.
Hello,
Uh,
everyone.
Himangi is an alum from Terra, and she's in India right now, a little bit late in her night, and she's helping us get people in. She'll be the person who will be able to get you to be able to ask questions and so on. And my name is Anshuman Bapna. I'm the founder and CEO of Terra.do. I'm calling in right now from Palo Alto, California. And we have an amazing hour to look forward to with Rodrigo, who is here with me in the call, and myself chatting about climate entrepreneurship, climate innovation. So thank you for joining from whichever part of the world you're joining in. As I mentioned, if you can turn on your video, please do. If you can't, that's fine too. And maybe I'll spend the first couple of minutes just talking about what's going to happen in the next 1 hour. So I am the idea is for this to be as interactive as possible. So we'll spend the first 30, maybe even 40 minutes talking about Rodrigo and my own climate journeys, starting the companies that we started. And we'll have about 20 minutes in the end to ask questions. At that time, you could either use one of Zoom's features to raise your hand and Imangi would call on you, or you could just type your question in the chat and we would pick up those questions and try to get to them. Outside of that, we are also going to be talking a little bit about the program that we run, where Himangi has graduated from in the last couple of minutes. So in case any of you are interested specifically about that, please feel free to drop me a line in the chat itself and I'll try to get to it. So with that, let's get started. I am really excited today to get Rodrigo and me in the same virtual room to talk about the companies that we have started, the climate journeys that we have taken. And what I'm going to do first is to spend the next few minutes talking about what I started, the company Terra.do. And then after that, I'll switch over to Rodrigo, and Rodrigo will introduce himself. And then after that, I have a bunch of questions for Rodrigo that I would also jump in and react to. So with that, just a quick introduction for myself. I am Anshuman Bapna. I have been a tech and social entrepreneur all my life. Started a few companies before this. And then about 6 years ago, had a classic midlife crisis. I have two kids, 16 and 10. They were definitely younger at that time. And the big aha moment for me was when I had taken them to the Great Barrier Reef and realized that this is a thing that I had been taking for granted would exist in our life and in our children's lifetimes. And that started a bit of a domino effect where I was increasingly trying more and more desperately to find out how I could work in climate. And then the big aha moment was when about early 2020, I realized that not only was it very hard to figure out all that was happening in this very fast-moving space, it also felt lonely. It felt I was the only person in my peer group who was thinking about this. And I really needed a community or a tribe that I could fall back on. And the other aspect of it was it just felt that we were talking about a transition unlike anything that humanity has ever attempted. And therefore, a few 100 million people will have the challenge that I faced. Luckily, at that time, I ran into my co-founder, Kamal, who has been in climate for 30 plus years and has been there, done that, been a little bit jaded by that time. Among other things, she had taught climate change at Oxford for many years, but got sick of academia and had moved to Hawaii to teach climate change to middle schoolers because she'd almost kind of given up on us adults. So that's when we met and we decided to start this company. And so think of Terra.do as a learning platform for the whole world. Um, we stand up learning programs for professionals, people like you and I, who are looking to transition into climate. And transitioning into climate could mean everything from just learning about it to bring it to the job that you already do. It could also mean transitioning into a new climate job. It could also mean starting a new climate organization. And one of the fun things that has happened at Terra is that we've had about 80 to 100 climate startups, both for profit and nonprofit, come out of the company, come out of our alums so far. In fact, two of them are political parties, which is really cool because I do think climate is ultimately politics and you have to win the politics to be able to make this really transformational change happen. And of course, doing also means activism. It also means volunteering and so on. So what we do is that we stand up learning programs on all kinds of things in climate. So we have a fellowship program, which is very broad, very horizontal, which is 12 weeks long. And then we invite climate experts to come and create programs on Terra. So programs ranging from soil health and regenerative farming to carbon capture and everything in between. So over the past 5 years, we have now graduated about 8,000 people across 80 plus countries, very diverse. So roughly 45% is US, but about another 40% is from the global South, from developing countries. And we also run one of the largest climate job boards. We invite climate organizations to come in and hire from Terra. And I think the most gratifying part for me is that roughly two-thirds of people who have graduated from our programs work in climate in some shape or form. So the journey has been lots of ups and downs. I think we have made a lot of mistakes along the way. We've also seen the boom and bust cycle that any new area has. And I would love to get Rodrigo's perspective on that as well. So when we started out, I think we spent almost the first couple of months discussing whether we should be a for-profit or a nonprofit and decided to go down the for-profit route. Uh, but Kamal and I are both in the US, and then in the US, Inflation Reduction Act happened. And it felt like the go-go times of the early internet era back again, where everyone was excited and working in climate and there was money flowing in and so on. And then, of course, the last 12 to 18 to 24 months have been extremely challenging. And the last 6 months, of course, in the US have been extremely challenging. So there's a whole narrative arc for those of you who are thinking about working in climate or starting companies in climate that I would love to touch upon as we go forward. So that's been our story. With that, I am really excited to invite Rodrigo Garcia Gonzalez, co-founder and co-CEO of Notpla, the company behind Ooho, the edible seaweed-based packaging that's changing how we think about plastic. And Rodrigo has had this incredible journey. So Rodrigo, I'll turn over the mic to you. I would love to hear for the next 5 minutes your and Notpla's story.
Great, thank you very much. Really glad to be here. So yeah, I'm Rodrigo, originally from Spain, but I had been in the UK, is where I'm coming from for now a few 14 years. And before that, I was moving a bit around. Maybe in order to make sure that this is a bit more visual, I'm going to share some images. Can you thumbs up if you see? Perfect. Trying to do it quite quickly, but like maybe not too many people recognize this gentleman over here, but he invented plastic. And he invented plastic 50 meters from where I'm sitting today in London, in Hackney Wick. And it's interesting because he invented plastic. I have one item here to make things like this. He invented it in 1856 to make coins. So one of the most durable kind of like items that you can imagine. It was highly flammable, but yeah, nowadays we use it for quite a lot of different items. It's almost everywhere. It's growing at incredible pace. And we always say like plastic is fantastic. It's a really kind of like a durable material, really cheap, really light, have incredible performance. But one of the superpowers of plastic is that it lasts really long. And that's as well a weakness if you use it for applications that they are not going to last really long. I can going to jump really quickly through a few different things, but like why we created this, we call it Ooho because it's what the sound that people say when they see it for the first time, this product, they make that surprise sound of like, ooh, or oh. And basically it's a membrane made out of seaweed. I don't know how much familiarity you have with seaweed, but it's one of the fastest organisms on Earth, can grow up to 2 meters a day, doesn't need fresh water, doesn't need fertilizer, and there's quite a lot of abundant seaweed. The advantage of seaweed is that you don't need to chemically modify it to convert it into a material that is flexible enough and works enough to contain certain products and work as packaging. You can see here in the screen, this is a normal wormery where our material disappears in less than 10 days. An orange peel will take a couple of weeks. Cardboard will take a month. And what is called nowadays bioplastics, they're still plastics because they're chemical modifications and they will never go away in this type of conditions. I can touch later a bit more on the beginnings, but like nowadays what we do a range of different products. So we do Ooho, this product for different type of applications. At the moment, we are focusing mostly on working with sports. So we have done things like the London Marathon, where we replace all the plastic bottles for edible drinks. We're working at the moment with Decathlon, that is a sports retailer, quite global, for energy gels. And on this journey, we have come across quite a lot of different things. We have transformed this product into different shapes. This for olive oil to contain little doses. Have done things like toothpaste. We try to do things like nature does, like designing fruits more than packaging. And in this journey, we came across a few different things. One of them was COVID. And as you can imagine, edible packaging during COVID times in sport events is not the most easy sell. But we started to work on different challenge related with plastic, that is coatings. Coatings is in every cardboard packaging that is used for food. Normally, there is a layer of plastic internally, like coffee cups, or cardboard by itself is soluble. So it's a bit like what we call like the dirty secret of food boxes. And at the moment, there's a few solutions on the market, but normally they involve like things like PFAs, that they are really forever chemicals, things like Teflon. So it's really dangerous for health, but as well for the environment. That's where we came and we use the same technology to apply it on cardboard. And we have been doing that for a while. I don't know if maybe it's not necessary, but like just to see the scale of it, we collect seaweed. This is European seaweed. We wash it, and then we get an extract. It looks a bit like this, but like in bigger scale. And then we coat it. In this case, we use a former factory that used to make Royal Mail stamps. So the stamps for sending letters, that, as you can imagine, that industry is not going really high. And then we can convert it into boxes. And then those boxes we use across different type of opportunities. So we do quite a lot of boxes, mostly in Europe. We do things across 50 different stadiums. We have done things like Wimbledon. We started to do some things in the US, like in some NBA stadiums, etc. So that's one of the easiest. And a few of the things that we are working on, we push quite a lot to make this material into a flexible film to be able to do things that plastic cannot do. So things that you can potentially cook with. And one of the last things that we are pushing is we are doing with this material quite a lot of different products. And we started to use our own fiber or our own waste to generate paper. So we make seaweed paper that can be used in different type of applications or uses. we started to do as well, like what we call seaweed pellets. So basically making this material into a hard form to be able to make things like cutlery, for example, with the idea of replacing other type of plastic items. What else to say? I'm not doing this alone. So we are at the moment a team of 55 people working across different type of skill sets. We were recognized by this big prize called the Airshot Prize. It was given in Boston. It's the biggest prize on sustainability that there is at the moment. It comes with £1 million and is given by Prince William, and it comes with a lot of support by himself. So he had been able to kind of like be one of the best business developers that we have in terms of like selling our boxes and making sure that like we have a bit of adoption there. So maybe I leave these 5 minutes there and happy to bounce conversations and ideas.
This is so amazing, Rodrigo. Thank you so much for. I'm glad that you shared those visuals as well. It just brings the whole story to life. And hard to beat having future royalty plug your product. So I think we need to figure out how to get there too. So maybe take us back to the very early days, to the student kitchen back in, was it 2013 when the first Ooho prototype. What did that look like? What did that taste like?
Yeah, sounds good. So maybe again sharing some feedback and background as well. Myself, my background is in architecture, so not too much to do with what we are doing now, but I had been always having a passion around plastic waste. So I had been able to kind of like run different projects, trying to push recycling of plastic bottles in different countries. So I had done that in different type of occasions and with different type of kind of like groups in South America, in India, in Poland, in Italy, but always with the realization that like it's really hard to kind of like make a big difference with recycling, and you always need new input of materials. So that's why I came back. I had been always really linked as well with university. So I studied until I was 30 years old. So I really like to study. And I was able to kind of like come back and rethink a bit how nature capture liquids. And if you think of something as beautiful as a fruit, how regenerative is a fruit, not only can capture liquid really well, is like, imagine a coconut, is coconut water. It's not that you don't throw it away and it's not plastic. It's like, it's regenerative to the point that you can throw it away and a new tree will grow with more coconuts. Imagine if you could do that with a plastic bottle. You throw it away and a new plastic bottle tree will grow. That's kind of like it seems far-fetched, but it's nowadays what we have through nature. So I was thinking through that. We were exploring different ideas of like where we see technologies that have been successful. One of them that we came across, it was fake caviar. It's how back almost 100 years ago we invented this technology of making things like fake caviar. A few chefs, a Spanish chef called Ferran Adrià was number one chef in the world, pick it up back in the 90s, but no one had been using it for things like packaging. So basically what we started with, not with the idea of making a business, but like we started buying products, and with my friend Pierre, who was a packaging engineer in L'Oreal, making a lot of shampoo bottles, etc., repackage them and inviting friends for dinner. So it was an interesting kind of like way of getting feedback. We put it on the hands of people and getting this iteration, and people were saying like, oh, what is this? This looks like a jellyfish. Or this gentleman was saying like, this looks like a breast implant. I don't know how a breast implant looks like, but or you can or getting feedback from people of like, oh, you cannot close it back. And it's true, you cannot close it back, but nature you cannot close back, but you can make segments, for example. So you can create skins inside of skins. So that gave us quite a lot of kind of like ways of iterating. Initially, we licensed the project as Creative Commons. So it means that a lot of people can replicate the recipe. So again, not with the ambition of making a company. And that video got quite viral quite quickly. And that times like Facebook was a thing. So we had like overnight, we got like 20 million views and it was reposted by Business Insider and a few things. And a lot of people started to replicate this. So that make it a big difference. We got noticed as well by several awards. So we won some awards. I always make the joke that we didn't win all the prizes. I don't know if you can see my face of disappointment here after losing a big check. But But we were able with that money to put a team of chemists in the university where we were, Imperial College, and being able to to push further this dream to a certain extent. And that had been a few years from now, but like we are more lucky that like we still have more people passionate about our mission of making plastic disappear and joining us every day to make this a reality on the different products that we have. And I think that summarize a bit that we went through a journey as well. Maybe we can touch on it a bit later, of like we did some fundraising through crowdfunding to start with. So basically in the UK, there is this fundraising. You could fundraise for products like Kickstarter, but you can fundraise for equity. So we did the fundraising of equity where 900 people or investors join us, putting from £10 to a few thousands. And that gave us the first money with the proposition we had of like, we're going to make a machine. So that was the idea. That was the dream. We are going to make, no one can make plastic, right? If I tell you, can you make plastic in your kitchen or in your business? No one can make plastic, but everyone can make this type of product. But we thought like, if you want to have a scale, you need to do it at industrial scale. So we got money to make that machine. We made that machine with that money. We not only made that machine, but we did several generations of machines. We came to the conclusion after quite a lot of time and resources going that we are not the best at making machinery. So basically we licensed that business to a German machine manufacturer who are really good at making machines. Interesting story as well. This is a machine manufacturer who is the number one of making sausage machines. So it's interesting. It's not like the plastic machines that you are used to. It's more for edible products. And with this, it's called Handman. And with this partner, we are able to kind of like scale up the machinery and being able to provide in big things. And then the journey of this product had been almost going from being able to do tens of units. And with those tens of units being able to go, I don't know, we have done quite a lot of things. We have done music festivals to test it. We have done small running events. We went slightly bigger running events. So we almost graduated in terms of like what we were able to do. We did, as I mentioned, like the London Marathon, there was a big hit, but we have done things like on tennis, where we did things with brands like Tropicana. We have tested, we had our own bars as well for people to come to do cocktails. We had vending machines because we realized that like this product was selling really well, but you had to have always someone selling it. And that's sometimes not economical if you want to have a good business, to have always someone behind the counter. We tested things like sauces, ketchup, mayo. So it had been quite a lot of like trial and error in terms of like making this thing happen, and always having a quite diversified approach of the things that we get feedback from, and how we can kind of like have different bets and different shots to see if we can tackle this problem, of this massive problem or opportunity of plastic packaging.
That's amazing. Rodrigo, I think you touched upon so many different things in your beautiful slides and that entire story. And one of the questions that I struggled with as an entrepreneur myself, and I would love to get your feedback and your story, is that at all times as a co-founder, you're balancing a few things, right? So in your case example, on one side, seaweed supply chains are still young, right? So and on the other side, the marketing story or the narrative, both for consumers but also for investors, keeps changing. So I guess the specifically on the seaweed aspect of it as well, which is on these supply chains, while they're still young, how do you balance things like regional farming, price stability, and maybe biodiversity protection as you scale? What has been the most challenging part for you as you kind of operationalize this business across a bunch of different types of products?
Good. Yeah. So I suppose first on seaweed. So seaweed, it feels like, as you mentioned, like a young material, but it's not. So we have been using seaweed for many different centuries, for many different applications. It's the oldest organism on Earth. And you could argue that we are all made out of seaweed or we are all come from seaweed. So it's quite interesting. It has, through the history, quite a lot of amazing uses. Had been used in Europe quite a lot to make glass, like windows. Had been used during the Second and First World War to make gunpowder. In the coast of California, there was a massive operations to kind of like get gunpowder out of seaweed. To get iodine, so the opposite is not only to kill, but like to save people. And nowadays we use quite a lot of seaweed in many different uses. So probably most of the people in this call have been using seaweed this morning in many different ways. But like things like toothpaste have seaweed, creams have seaweed, croissants have seaweed, yogurts have seaweed, beer have seaweed. Almost all the processed food have seaweeds. Textiles, they have seaweed. So there's quite a lot of kind of like existing uses of seaweed. At the moment, there is like a 40 million tons of seaweed used globally annually. If you compare it with plastic, plastic is 400 million tons. So it's 1/10. So plastic is still win, but like it's not that far off, if that makes sense in terms of like how much seaweed the advantage of seaweed as well is that you can plant and you can harvest several harvests per year. You don't need too much human intervention. You desalinify the ocean. There's much more ocean than land, so you can plant more things in the ocean than in land. Creates ecosystems. So there's quite a lot of kind of like opportunities there. Having said that, it's true that like to balance that that way, what we have been starting is to use existing supply chains or existing grades of seaweed that at the moment they are done for food more than for packaging. And at the moment we have an internal team working on making packaging grade seaweeds, let's put it that way, that they are kind of like better performance and in terms of like yield, cost, volumes that relate more with this industry than like with food or with pharma. There is always a bit of a attention of like what we work with quite a lot of like young seaweed farmers. In Europe, there's quite a lot of like seaweed farmers who are started who don't have the volume yet to kind of like being able to, but at the same time they have the ambition, and we need to make sure that there is somewhere to start with. At the same time, for making a big difference in packaging, you need to deliver things at millions. So at the moment, kind of like we do more than 10 million units per year. So it's kind of like you need things at volumes to and packaging as well is a commodity. So people don't accept to pay packaging kind of like a crazy amount of money. So you need to kind of like make sure that like you use that push and pull and that kind of like buying power to make sure that you help the industry on that way. The second question around balance, can you refresh myself? I lost my thought on the seaweed, and I don't know.
Oh, well, it's great. The supply chains for seaweed could potentially originate from artisanal seaweed farmers to something that looks like industrial production.
Correct.
And the way they are being extracted could potentially also regenerate or potentially also harm those very fragile ecosystems. So from when you're trying to operationalize something at bigger scale like this, and you're trying to go 10x of where you are right now to be able to truly match plastic toe-to-toe, what's kind of, how have you thought about that process and how to put in place things that allow you to be very thoughtful and considerate about the ecosystems and the communities that you're working with?
Good. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, seaweed is again like this amazing material. I don't know if people kind of like visualize what a seaweed farm is. Maybe I can kind of like reshare some of the visuals, but like basically you put, well, there's 72 different species of seaweed. What I have behind is all the seaweeds that we work with. And mainly there's like 3 main species of seaweed: brown, red, and green. Or families of species. We work quite a lot with brown seaweed, that it looks like this. I don't know if you can see on my camera. And the amazing thing of brown seaweed is that you can get this, what we call hydrocolloid, that has this amazing property that basically you can cast it. I don't know if you can see on my screen this little experiment. You can cast it and you can cross-link it with salt water, and this is a reaction that happens on nature. And this creates a film. I don't know if people can see from home. But this is a this is a film that can be used for packaging. So this is like what we do to package liquids, etc. And this is something that happens in nature as such. For that, there is different ways of like it's like saying like agriculture or like saying forestry. So you have like seaweed that grows naturally, that appears on beaches, and you can collect it there. There is kind of like collection as well of seaweed in the same way that like you would do forestry, or there are farming activities like the one that you see on the picture is a farm that there's in the UK called Carrymore in Wales, that they have been farming seaweed now for 2-3 years in combination with other type of like shellfish, etc. On top of that, there is quite a lot of things like sargassum blooms. I don't know if you have heard about this, that it's a big problem. So it's a problem and solution. A lot of people get paid quite a lot of money to collect these blooms. Comes as well for the massive use of fertilizers. But yeah, so we're trying to be conscious of not making the same mistakes that had happened in land, in the sea. So there is there's a convention like forbidden to introduce invasive species, for example. We know things that don't work too well in land that needs to be avoided in the sea, like monocultures. And as well, working with the locals community is quite important. I think it's one of the advantages as well of seaweed against plastic. So not too many countries can be able to produce petroleum, but most of the communities that have access to coast are able to kind of like cultivate or recollect seaweed. So it's a quite interesting business. There's different communities as well handle this in different ways. Just to mention a few interesting cases around the world, but like I don't know, in Indonesia it's one of the main nations now with seaweed. They multiplied the use of seaweed times 5 over the last few years, and it empowers quite a lot of fishermen, if that makes sense, to instead of putting extra pressure sometimes in capturing fish, into grow seaweed, which is quite interesting. In Namibia, there is a few projects as well around capturing carbon through seaweed. So seaweed as well, at the same time that it grows, 1/3 of the biomass, it gets sink into the ocean. So it's a really nice way to capture carbon. There is quite a lot of projects as well of just growing seaweed for the fact of growing seaweed. Some of them supported by the Bezos Foundation. And yeah, we are not vertically integrated, so we don't own seaweed farms. So we are not seaweed farmers ourselves, but we try to work with different communities. At the moment, we try to, as much as we can, we're operating mostly in Europe and in the UK. So we work mostly with, as much as we can, with European farmers and suppliers and extractors. But we are really happy and really kind of like looking forward to, as soon as we can expand and operate in other countries, to use local sourcing for this type of material.
Rodrigo, I think I'm going to ask you one more question before I switch over to Q&A. And that is just to switch gears a little bit for all of us who are here on the call right now, who are thinking about either starting a climate company right now or transitioning into a climate career. Now, these are not easy times. I sometimes wonder if I would have started this company if it was 2025, or I would have started a very different form of it. What's your advice for people who are looking to transition into climate right now? What was part of your personal journey, things that you've learned, or even the times that you've seen right now that would give advice, hope to people who are thinking about starting companies, transitioning into climate, and so on?
Good. So maybe to start with a bit general advice, or like from experience, for me, it had been a journey really similar to almost like when you play a sport. Imagine if you find this analogy of like you are playing, I don't know, basketball or football or baseball or whatever you want to play, and you have to score. You have a ball and you have to score. The first thing that you need to do is to find a team. It's really hard to score by yourself, right? So if you decide with who you wanted to play with, and being able to share and pass that ball with people, it's really hard to score by yourself. So I think it's good to share your ideas. And sometimes we have a bit this concept of like, oh, if I share my ideas, someone's going to steal me. For me, it had been almost the opposite. The more that you share, the more that idea grows, and the more that people kind of like push and commit to it. So it's just, that's at least my experience. So first, if you are playing a sport, you need to pass that ball, and you need to make sure that you have a team to pass that ball with. Second, I think you don't need to be afraid of shooting, even if it's on the dark, right? Like, again, finding this analogy of a sport, if you're playing basketball or football or soccer or whatever, you need to shoot, shoot, shoot. You know, the first time you're not ever going to score, but the more times you shoot, the easier is going to kind of like score points. So I think for us, that has been a learning of like being able to not be afraid of putting things out there, even if they're not perfect, and learn from it. So that has been quite important. And the last advice on that front, but maybe sometimes it's the first one, but like after you shoot or even before you shoot, is to listen a bit to kind of like the market, different people, the users, the planet. So it is to how to have those ideas or how to kind of like evolve those ideas is again through similar in a sport. You need to first capture the ball. How you capture the ball, looking where the ball is and listening where the ball is. So like you need to catch that, and you do that through normally observation or listening. Maybe a bit more specifically what you were saying of like hard times now on climate, specifically in certain geographies. I think climate could not be a trend, if that makes sense. For us, what we sometimes how we rephrase things is that, yeah, maybe at the moment, if you mention in certain countries climate, it positions you politically, but sometimes when you say the word future, it doesn't. So everything that we do is like trying to make something for the future. And inside of the future, there is many different kind of like aspects, but climate definitely is one of them. So it's one of the ways, I think, of navigating maybe some of these harder times, depending where you are located, on talking some of these topics. So I think everyone wants to have a future. I don't think there is a question on that, independently of yeah, which area you are. And if you focus your ideas, your solutions, your innovations around the future, and you start with that, and I think everything that you could call climate could be called future. It's an interesting way to start a conversation, at least.
Rodrigo, I'm going to use your analogy to talk about how what we do at Terra is connected. And I'm going to use a sports analogy. So I've just posted a link in chat, but this is the program that we run. So let me just quickly share my screen. This is called Learning for Action. This is the 12-week program that we run to get people who are looking to work in climate to come in and basically meet, first of all, your teammates that you're going to be passing all these balls to. So this is, and second is to also give you a sense of what's at play, where's the goal, what's going on in the space right now, how do you actually figure out which areas are areas that you might be most amenable to bringing your skills to, and where do we need entrepreneurship, where do we need new jobs, and it goes through a bunch of different things, including we talk a lot about how you think about bioregions, how you think about food and ag systems, and you think about the industrial production processes that we have right now during the program itself. So our last date for applying is today. So just a plug that in case you are thinking about joining 5,000 other people who have graduated from this program, please come by and join for our next cohort that starts in about 5 days' time. So with that, I think we are at our scheduled discussion section, and I see that there are a bunch of questions in the chat. Again, by all means, feel free to raise your Zoom hand if you want to just speak, but otherwise we'll start picking up questions from the chat. So Himagi, do you have one to get us started?
I think we can start with Alessandra. If you'd like to unmute yourself, or I can read the question. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I start just saying thank you to Rodrigo for being here and also the work you're doing. I'm a Terra.do graduate. I learned actually about your company doing an assignment on solutions. So thank you for the work you're doing to plastic, to the problem of plastic. As I said, I work in FMCG, so I'm quite keen to learn a little bit more about where you see the barriers on really scale, and how professionals in FMCG, but also us as consumers, can help you and the industry to resolve the plastic problem.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. So I suppose barriers, depending what type of product we are doing, but like on the edible products, normally the shelf life is one of the challenges that we have, or the opportunities, depending again how you see it from the opportunistic side or not. What we normally try to do is to try to match the shelf life of the product with the shelf life of the packaging. So the shortest shelf life that we have is for orange juice, I think we have like 4 days for fresh orange juice. So it's quite short. So it's really hard for retail to kind of like, or for a big FMCG to kind of like engage on that step if you know it's for an event or it's for an occasion. For other things that have less water content, like things like olive oil, it's 2 years. So it's not that short. So that's quite interesting. On edible, for us, the fact that it's edible, we use it quite a lot almost as a proof that it's not plastic, more than a reality, if that makes sense, that like you can eat it. You can eat it, but it's a bit like a fruit peel. There's a lot of barriers in terms of like that type of change of consumer. I think we have been as well highly dependent on plastic, and most of our supply chain requirements or legislation is built around that. Plastic is subsidized. I don't know if people are familiar with this concept, but like from the World Trade Organization, the categories where plastic kind of like is when you are importing plastic to a country, it's really low because most of the countries, they don't have petrochemicals. So like the tariffs, if that makes sense, for those type of products are really low. While in natural materials like seaweed or fibers are higher at normally kind of like 20%. That's one of the mechanisms traditionally that, so it's crazy that like we're trying to fight against plastic, but we are putting a lot of money or a lot of incentivization on crude oil and petroleum-based products to have a success. So that's a challenge. More challenge that we have for barriers. Plastic is a really sophisticated material, had 150 years of development. What we are working on is it has less than that. And everyone wants to have something that is like plastic in terms of cost, availability, performance, but it's not plastic. And that's quite hard. Imagine if you will ask that to the plastic of nowadays, or like, so it's you have to understand that what we are trying to work with as well is natural materials. We call it like natural polymers, and they can do certain things. So it's finding at least to start with those niches. And we had those things. So we know from the past as well, we have natural materials that have been working for packaging at bigger scale, right? Like, I don't know, Alessandra, where are you from? But it seems like...
I'm Italian originally, but I'm based in London. So I've seen the Lucozade, I've seen the work you've done.
But in Italy, for example, traditionally, you have like amazing concepts of natural packaging, like ice cream cones. For us, it's kind of like mind blowing, right? Or like the way that you package, I don't know, salami or prosciutto, you know, like, or cheese. You know, it had been ways that we had for centuries really proven that we could operate and package things at a scale. You just need a change, if that makes sense, of like how we operate in certain things. We need as well certain early adopters for this and believers. So there's certain companies who are quite looking forward for innovation, like Decathlon, for example. We have been working quite well with them. Certain companies as well, we have been quite, I don't want to mention company, but like, for example, one Italian company, you can imagine who could be, who take 10 years to develop a new cookie with chocolate inside. So it's like, if that's the time that they take to develop a cookie, just to transform completely the packaging, you understand the scales are big, but
I'll check it out. Yes, I've seen even Just Eat what you've done. Again, I'm in UK, so I know what.
So at the moment, we have found a few niches that work quite well. So we are quite big now in food service. So takeaway packaging, like you mentioned, Just Eat. We are starting now with Uber Eats. We work a lot with Compass Group. Compass Group is the biggest food service company. So they serve a lot of canteens, stadiums. The moment we are, as I mentioned, in 50 stadiums, we are in the canteen of Google, of Apple, of quite a lot of consultancies in London. So that's a check because it's normally shared short-term consumption, and we can exceed on that type of environments. Retail, we have not cracked it yet. We are starting with a few things. Things on ice cream works relatively well, and a few other things, but we are not the best material at the moment to keep things for really, really long time. So we cannot, at the moment, offer solutions like Tetra Pak will offer that will keep your use for 5 years intact. So that's, maybe you don't need to keep your use for 5 years intact, but like that's a bit the game that we're playing now, doing the opposite.
Thank you. There are some key takeaways that I got. It explains better. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
So next we have Fraz and Yoni. I think your questions are pretty much related. So if I could request Fraz to kind of go first, and then Yoni can follow, and then Rodrigo can answer.
Sure. So, Rodrigo, first of all, thank you. It's really impressive presentation, and for your work, it's incredible. Just want to know the cost, the plastic and what's the green premium or percentage of the green premium, and the total quantity available of seaweed to produce the plastic. You mentioned 400 million metric ton and 40 million metric ton. Is there enough seaweed to reach that 400 million metric ton?
Yeah. Good. So first part of the question, in terms of cost.
Should I hop in here or after?
Sure, Yoni, go ahead. I mean, Rodrigo, the questions are related, so maybe you can take them together.
Perfect.
Great. Related, to the question of cost, and also you mentioned incentives for fossil fuels and tariffs and kind of structural factors. I'm curious just to hear more of your thoughts about the role of regulation, policy, public financing, incentives, et cetera, to help tilt the competitive playing field or market away from plastics faster. It seems like you and we all are playing on a tilted playing field where fossil fuels are subsidized and structurally advantaged in a lot of ways. So curious your thoughts on that. And like everyone else has said, thank you so much for being here and sharing your work and doing your work. It's very inspiring.
Perfect. Thank you. So jump into a few things. In terms of cost, it depends at what type of scale or what type of level. The moment the product that we sell the most is like boxes like this, the one that we sell for Wimbledon. This one at the box level to a stadium normally it costs like 10 to 15% more than the plastic box. So it's not like that massive. This is because we're doing it now in quite big volumes. Other products that we do that they're a bit more unique, that we have to do the manufacturing yourself, they are not such a big volumes, are more expensive, but you cannot do it with plastic. So it's a bit like a different strategy of like red ocean against blue ocean in terms of like capturing the market. What else there was there in terms of like seaweed and amount of seaweed that we have? There's a few things there. So this is the graph of how seaweed kind of like it's not completed because it stops in 2019, but you can see there's quite a lot of kind of like growth on seaweed. I think we run the calculation. If you wanted to kind of like replace all the plastic that there is at the moment in the world, I think you will need 0.06 of the available coastlines. So it's quite achievable if you need it. At the same time, we don't have the ambition of replacing all the plastic that is on the world. First, because again, plastic is good depending for what you use it. And second, because what we have with seaweed only applies to a specific type of uses, not for everything. So that's probably second question. And then there was a question around regulation. I think definitely there is a few things that have been really key for us. Let me pull them up. First one, the European Union have created this kind of like framework of what is a plastic and what is not a plastic. In order to be a not plastic, you need to be a polymer that is abundant in nature and not chemically modified. And that have created quite clear definition of things like, I don't know if you have heard about PLAs, that they are kind of like starch-based or corn-based materials that you modify them to make a plastic. They have to have this sticker. Not only that, but depending as well on which geography, for example, in the Netherlands, they started to have to pay a tax. So in the Netherlands, if you buy a product that has plastic, similar than in other places, you have to pay for a supermarket bag that contains plastic. Had been quite effective. In this case, you have to pay. And it had been really good because ourselves as Notpla, we had been recognized by the government in the Netherlands so far as one of the only or few materials that like are not plastic. So we don't need to pay that tax. So that tax is quite significant, depending how you see it. So it really helped for us to kind of like drive market adoption. On top of that, we can, another play that we put is carbon reduction in terms of cost. And the other play that we play on terms of like cost of the product, not only on carbon, but something that as well is not accounted, is how much is the cost of plastic, not in the moment of buying the plastic, but in the moment of disposing the plastic. Just to give you a few examples with that, but like when you dispose plastic waste, a marathon, for example, is quite obvious. They don't pay for plastic, they get paid to have plastic. So it's a hard sell to start with, right? Marathon, they get a big sponsorship from a big company that package water in plastic to be there. But what not too many people know is that for all these runners, the marathon have to pay sometimes up to £2 per runner to clean up the plastic. So it's quite substantial. So like when you look at the full cost of the product, there's something to say. Other products is a bit more intangible, but for example, for takeaway boxes in a stadium pays quite a lot of money for every bag of waste that they send to incineration. If they can send it to recycling, that is something that can happen with our boxes, they can get money out of that waste. Or if they can compost it as well, is something positive. We have a few cases. At the moment, for example, in the O2 arena, there's an arena here in London, they compost it and they use it for fertilizing their own kind of like sometimes pitches or gardens or things like that. So it's to try to find these cases of considering cost not at the moment of acquisition, but through the full system. We're putting a lot of now effort, not ourselves, but like with different universities to quantify the cost of plastic. Normally it's finger in the air in different reports of WWF, and it says like it's 10 times more the cost of buying plastic for the society in different ways or forms in order to clean it from a health perspective, etc. So there's quite a lot of elements there. So regulation can help quite a lot. We have created a group with different companies that we share quite a lot of values and principles with. We call the Natural Polymer Group, to try to influence as much as we can regulation as well and to have a voice. It's quite a lot of lobby on the plastic industry, as you can imagine, to keep things as usual and to sell concepts like recyclability as the main solution for the problem. That is potentially one of the solutions for certain type of plastic, but it's not the ultimate solution. And we have recycling for a really long time. We recycle less than 10% of plastic. Doesn't get recycled into normal plastic. It normally get downcycled into plastic that doesn't have too much qualities. It's not an infinite solution, and you need always more plastic to fit that solution. So yeah, quite a lot of elements there. Hopefully I answered those three things.
Thanks.
Great. Ethan, I think you can go next.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed your style of just having an open conversation with that supporting pictures, really breadth of knowledge communicated with minimal slides that had words on it. It was really cool to see. Something I'm curious about, as we talk about the success you've been able to have, and as we talk about the gap in the climate industry and adaptation of all of the solutions, what were some of the challenges or difficulties you had to overcome when it came to connecting with those local communities you work with for farming of the seaweed, or in general, some of those really cool clients you've been able to land, like Wimbledon and some of the racing events? How did you strategize your proof of concept phase to connect with people like that, to bring your solution to market in a way that also highlighted its best strengths, like the race example you keep bringing up? How did you connect with those racing organizations to say, this is how we can help, and have that conversation about why those early adopters should work with you?
Yeah, well, it sounds good. Maybe coming back to the analogy of sports, or like the marathon or Wimbledon, I think it's, imagine if you are the athlete who is planning to do a marathon, it's quite hard to run a marathon from zero. So it's exactly what happened to us. first we have to prove ourselves with the local races. So basically we show up, if that makes sense, in a park where there was a local race, and we gave this, and that worked. That gave us the confidence to go to a small event organizer who was organizing 5-kilometer runs, and a few of them, and we validated with them. And that gave us the confidence to go to the next organizer who was organizing 10-kilometer runs, bigger quantity of runners. And then half marathons, we validated with a few half marathons in London. And then a marathon that was not too much known, and then London Marathon. And then from London Marathon, we were able to secure New York Marathon, Boston Marathon. COVID happened, so all the marathons got canceled, and we changed slightly a bit the business, but like it happened the same with the rest, with the boxes or with the stadiums. It's quite hard to go from 0 to millions units. From my experience, is like you go from 0 to 10, from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000, from 1,000 to 10,000, and those jumps you can predict and you learn from them and you validate yourself. Same thing as well had happened for us for how to grow the team, or always see it almost as every time we do a fundraising is like we win that league and we're able to have more money to hire more new fresh players and to invest in the players that we have, to train them, to improve the facilities that we have, and to be able to play better games. So yeah, it's step by step.
That's awesome feedback. Thank you. It sounds like you're not just building your team in steps, but you're also building your capability in steps, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, my climate colleagues will not like this phrase that I use, which is, how do you eat an elephant? But we all know the answer to that. So thank you, Rodrigo, for illustrating how you do that. I know that we still have a few more questions in the chat, but given the time, we would not be able to get to them right now. This recording does go out to our almost 100,000 members of the whole Terra community, and obviously all our alumni. Rodrigo, this has been just an incredible journey to kind of walk with you in those steps, to see all the paths that you've taken and all the advice that you've had for all of us who are thinking about following a similar journey in our own work. It's been a pleasure. I really look forward to a lot of Notpla, and especially in the US, where we need a lot more of products like this, and frankly, regulation and a lot of supporting infrastructure. And even though it might seem like an incredibly tough time, I think your work and the team's work has illustrated how you can kind of keep going at it step by step, and build up a team, build up a stamina, and build up kind of this world model of how change could come about. So I really thank you for that. Any last piece of advice for us?
No, just as I mentioned, like reiterating this idea of like first listening and capturing where that idea is, bouncing that ball with your teammates, and then shoot. So good luck to everyone with your different games and teams and scores.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rodrigo. And for everyone else who's here, in case you want to join the next cohort, please do come by to Terra. We're really excited about what this cohort is shaping up to be. About 200 plus people from about 45 different countries already. So please come by, find your team members, and let's start this sport. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Buggy, again for coordinating us.
Thank you. Thank you, Rodrigo.
See you all.
Thank you.